Hey everyone, it's been a while. Welcome back to the Shea Station podcast. I don't think I can call it the newest Mets podcast anymore. It's just the Jomboy Media podcast because Jomboy Media already has a new podcast with David Cohen, which is pretty exciting. So we're no longer the new hot stuff. But as always, it's your guy Jolly Olive Jack, and I'm joined by some guy Gerald Blevins. He did some things in his career for a few years and whatnot.
I'm no David Cohen, but we are still the hotness. I'll tell you that.
Exactly. Like, we still got the former player. We still got some style.
We don't need the new hotness. It would just be the hotness.
Jerry is rocking his Bengals hat, and for good reason. Decisive victory over the Ravens, looking real good.
Looking good. Joe Burrow is the real deal. I was nervous about, his complete knee reconstruction issues, but he came out looking great. Jamar Chase looked like he was struggling in the preseason with all their games and complaining that the ball doesn't have the stripes that college ball does. And then I was like, oh no, we wasted a pick. We could have, got offensive linemen. No, he's the real deal. 200 yards last game or yesterday. That's
so good.
Bananas.
So we're talking football because in the baseball world, it's just woohoo. The Braves are in the World Series. They won the pennant without Acuna, without Soroka. And I was talking to good old Jakey Burns today, right before I set up the studio for like an hour because everything was broken. And basically what I said to Jake that he told me I should say on here is that if we do get the worst case scenario and the Braves win the World Series, I think that it'll be a catalyst for the Mets to go into go mode, to understand that this is now, in the last 3 years, two of your division rivals winning the World Series. You have to join the club. It's time to go. It's time to spend big and make the right decision. So if anything comes of that nightmare, I'm hoping it's that. I'm hoping that's the silver lining we find. But I'm hoping the Astros just win.
You're flying solo on this podcast for that being a nightmare. I've got some friends over there.
Yeah, you do.
I get it. I'm not, it's not easy to root for, but I root for my friends and the players, and they're classy, man.
Like, it is a very likable team, and I'm not gonna go much further than that because I'm sure
Doesn't it feel good though? Like if your division rival that beat you out for the division title wins, because it makes you like seem like maybe you were better than you were, or you were good because you got beat out by the champions, kind of thing.
I understand that perspective of like, well, they beat us, but they also beat everybody else. So like, they
knocked us out of the tournament, but we lost. But they also won the thing, so we could have just been the second best team.
So, like, if we didn't play them, we probably would have won the whole thing, Yeah,
That's what I mean.
I'm sure Mets fans will love that silver medal. So, yeah, there you go, guys. There's your silver medal.
That's great.
So there hasn't been a lot of Shea Station talk recently, and for good reason, because there's just not a lot to talk about in the Mets world. But we have more rumors to discuss, and the Dodgers are out of things now, so that means that their executives are either going to get new deals or possibly talk with other teams like the Mets. The biggest one was sort of a bomb drop from Disha Thosar, who does great work for Daily News. She dropped some pretty heavy rumors of a guy named Brian Sabean. Now, for those that have been following the Mets executive hunt, they had three big names on their list of Theo Epstein, David Stearns, and Billy Beane, all of whom are out of the running now. For those who don't know, Billy Beane was interested in the job, but for a good reason didn't want to take it because he didn't want to basically uproot his family and move them across the country. And I think that was a good reminder that, with the players, with the executives, with the coaches, these are people with families and wives and all those things. And sometimes, life is in the way of those opportunities. And I'm sure Billy Beane is very happy where he is. So if that was the reasoning for him not coming over to the Mets, then I found like perfect solace in that. Although it is a bummer, obviously, because it could have happened in a different universe. But I'm happy for Billy Beane. I just want to upfront say that.
Yeah, I mean that's a classy move for him to even speak on it because he doesn't have to. Just to say, at 60 years old and it'd be silly of him to want to uproot his whole family for his own. He called it would have been a really selfish move. Very classy.
Yeah, extremely classy guy. So, I hope he continues to have success in Oakland, but, not so much success that he beats us in the World Series. Anyway, the bomb drop that Disha was writing about is from a guy named Brian Sabean. Now, if you're not familiar with the name, you'll probably be familiar with his accolades and his resume. He is the former general manager of the Giants in their stretch of 3 World Series titles from 2010 to 2014, and he stayed with the team in a smaller capacity. And now, with rumors and with all these podcasts, you don't know how real this evidence may be, but the quotes and the evidence brought forth seems very legitimate, and like the motivations for him wanting this job seem legitimate. If Steve Cohen hired Sabean, Disha noted that there might also be a likely chance that they can get a Hall of Fame manager in Bruce Bochy to maybe come out and oversee the team in some capacity, whether that's manager or some other role. I'm just going to read out a bunch of quotes from the article because it is a very good article. It's a very exciting article, and as soon as I read it, I knew I wanted to basically open the show with it. Not only would Brian Sabean be a home run hire for the Mets, but he's apparently willing and excited to be considered for the club's open position of president of baseball ops. And that's been basically the opposite of every single exciting candidate that we've heard of so far. It's that we've sort of had to pry them to get to talk about it and to get in for an interview. But, conversely, Brian Sabean seems excited for the opportunity itself. But I don't know where they are in that process, if they've even spoken to him or if there's been an interview of some kind. But that at least is encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, this is the two philosophies that you want as a Mets fan. You're either going to get an established winner, somebody that knows how to do it. I mean, 3 World Series championships over there, built a farm system to last, a really good core he put together. I was on the other side of the bay during that run for the most part, like being in Oakland, watching these guys win the World Series with Lincecum, Matt Cain, Buster Posey, Madison Bumgarner, pretty incredible, like seeing these things happen. He knows how to win. And this is if you wanted the veteran that knows how to win, the established, front office, top tier guy, this is pretty exciting because for him, again, Disha's great. I'll give her a follow on Twitter. She's on top of the game. So there's got to be some substance here. And it takes somebody that is motivated to want to come over and do this. So if this is what you want, this is another name that you wouldn't even think to be on the radar because of the same things as the other guys. And then there's, the other end of the tail and the other side of the coin is you want somebody up and coming to kind of rise up through the ranks and establish himself, and with the Mets become a name like, Brian Sabean, like Billy Beane, establish himself in New York. And so these it's nice to have options finally, not just dart throws and hope, throw somebody's name out there and be like, well, how do you feel? It's nice to be wanted, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. It's just nice to feel wanted by somebody.
Nice to feel wanted.
Some of the reluctance surrounding Sabean was that he wasn't on the new frontier of analytics and stuff like that. But what you mentioned, I think, is more important in the fact that he's been the architect of 2 very good cores. The one being the Brandon Crawford, Buster Posey Legion that, is still succeeding in 2021. They won 107 games this year. A large portion of that were the role players that have been there for a decade. The other thing that he was an architect of was a scout for the Yankees in the early 2000s, late 90s. And that means all the guys that you're thinking of: Derek Jeter, Bernie Williams, Andy Pettitte, Jorge Posada, Mariano Rivera, all cited in Disha's article as the work of Brian Sabean, amongst others. So if one successful track record didn't convince you, there's 2, and both of those teams won multiple championships in the span of a very short amount of time. So the final quote I'm going to read here is the one that intrigued me the most, and the one why I think maybe Brian Sabean would be excited to interview in the first place. Disha said that he's going stir crazy in San Francisco with essentially nothing to do in the role of special assistant. He hasn't been GM since 2014. He stayed with the club because of all that success. And the real attraction for Sabean would be the fact that it's New York and it's the Mets. Unlike Billy Beane, who was reluctant to uplift his family and his roots from the West Coast, the source close to Sabean said that he would do it in a heartbeat if the Mets offered him the job. Now, I feel like my heart's getting played with. I feel like it's another one of these too good to be trues, and I think I was keen on that with Billy Beane and Theo. But this isn't, a big name. I didn't know who Brian Sabean was before this. I can't lie to you. I don't know a lot of the executive names, but if we get somebody young and exciting to sort of embrace analytics alongside a guy like Sabean, because at the end of the day, even if you're president of baseball operations, the job doesn't end there. There's still GMs and special assistants that need to help you make decisions and decide plans and stuff like that. But I think Sabean's a really good guy to head the front, and I'm hoping that we get more news on this front because it's been quiet for like a day or two ever since these rumors dropped.
Yeah. Like I said, man, this is a name. I actually did know this name, obviously being close in the Bay Area, and just seeing this Titan being built in San Francisco. It was pretty crazy. We thought we had some good teams, and then they went on and we win the World Series. Like they knocked me out when I was with Washington in 14. We got Bumgarnered, but it's a tale of two tapes. Do you want an established name, somebody that knows how to win? There's a reason why these guys win. It's not because they stuck to their own way. It's because they're smart and adapt and surround themselves with smart people. A lot of the time smarter than they are. That's the best. You surround yourself with people that are the best at doing whatever you need them to do. And he may not have been on the frontier of the analytical side of baseball, but I guarantee you he's not going to shut himself off to that now. He's smart. You adapt. He was probably at the forefront of a different approach when he started doing those things, which is why he got to San Francisco in the first place. And so these guys adapt. They may not be known for one particular area, but they're smart and they surround themselves with people that can help. So if we get them, if we're interested, you got to trust, Stevie Cohen and Sandy and people that are doing the hiring to do a great job of vetting it out and seeing what you want. And they have to decide the direction of the organization ultimately. So, at least again, like it's nice to be wanted, and to have somebody seek us out to throw their name in the hat is pretty nice to see. And that may be, even if it doesn't end up being Brian Sabean, at least people see that if it's desirable, that one time you think about, like, as soon as you get a girlfriend, all of a sudden you see other girls are like, hey, he's taken. There must be something to that guy. That kind of approach. Now they're like, hey, maybe what is it that I didn't see the first time thinking about that Mets job opportunity? So hopefully this is like a snowball effect.
Yeah, I really do hope so. It's just such a refreshing piece of news to see somebody alongside these other guys with successful track records find the job desirable, because I don't understand. I understand the track record of the Mets themselves as a franchise being laughable and doing a lot of crazy things and having all sorts of insane news cycles. But at the same time, this is the third highest payroll in baseball in the second year of a new owner who is a fan of the team and wants the team to win. I mean, it seems like a home run from all angles. You just signed a superstar to like a 12-year contract. You have a bunch of money to play with and a huge free agent market to basically take your picking of. So I'm happy that there are names emerging. Another name that came forth in the past week is basically the other side of the spectrum, which I find very interesting, especially if these two forces combine in some way. The guy's name is Peterbendix, and he's with the Tampa Bay Rays, which is always a good sign because you want a Rays executive because of what they've been doing. He's the vice president of baseball development for their team, but in 2009, he joined as a measly intern and worked his way up over the past 11 years to get where he is now. So he knows all facets of how a front office works, especially one that's strained for funds and has to basically find clever ways to win like the Rays have. So he knows how to win. He knows how to basically scout talent, and there's no better guy on the Mets' radar at scouting talent right now than Brian Sabean. So I really do think the combining of these minds would be very intriguing, especially with what I said before, with Sabean sort of being outed from his job a little bit because of the new frontier of analytics. If you want a guy to sort of embrace that alongside him, I think Peterbendix is the perfect fit. And by the way, I don't know if you saw the picture we posted of Peterbendix, but if you picture what he looks like, it's pretty spot on, just in general. He has the perfect
I'm going to Google
look.
it.
I think you need to. I think you need to. The look of
I was going to ask you if we know anything about like where he's from, what his background is. Does he have any vetting interest in being in the Northeast, uprooting from Florida?
Right. So he's another one of these with like engaged interest, not so much he's a name being thrown out there and then you talk to him and he goes, I'm not really interested. I'm comfortable where I am. He also he gives me big Paul DePodesta vibes in Moneyball with Jonah Hill. Like, I know we just lost out on DePodesta because he's staying with the Browns, but he has that look of like, I don't want to be mean, but he's got the nerd look that I love. And I really want him in charge of things just on account of that. And his track record, of course.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is, like you said earlier, this is two sides to a coin. We have Brian Sabean, the established winner, somebody that's done it, has a track record of doing it. And on the other side, you have this potential dynasty builder. What do you want? What do you want as an organization? That's the thing I'm most excited about, is seeing once they do figure it out. I think finally they have options to pick a direction instead of being forced to a certain side. We can't get the big names that we want, so we have to go young. I think now they're going to have some options, so they'll be able to choose a philosophy that they're comfortable with and moving forward. I feel like this might be the first step in the snowball of, now we're starting to build some momentum. Now we're going to make a hire. Now we're going to start filling that out. I think this is the first positive step for me that feels more like we're moving versus just throwing names out there and trying to figure out which one sticks. This feels like a positive step forward.
You were very reassuring to me before we started recording this pod in the first place, because, as any Mets fan, you get a little antsy because, a bunch of teams are out of the race now and there's only 2 left and they're all gearing up for their offseason. And I'm thinking, is this vetting process and this hiring process taking too long? And you assured me, no, you're not worried about it at all. And you've been inside clubhouses, so you obviously know better than I do. And it also took me back to a thought from, last year. And for those who don't remember, because it's, getting close to 365 days ago, the Mets didn't hire a GM until December of last year and still had what I thought was a successful offseason. Now, what you think of that GM hire or whatever, because there's only so many great things you can say about Porter at this point. But, it was universally praised at the time. Many people thought that the Mets did a good job with that hire before the scandal came forth. So with them taking as much time as they need, I still don't think it's going to take till December. I would be shocked if it did. But, if you get a home run hire, I don't really think there's anything to worry about. So you lost out in your big 3. You have 2 exciting, different candidates moving forward and emerging. And you also have 2 guys from the Dodgers that you can now speak to potentially, because the Dodgers are out of things and because the Dodgers core is being dissolved and they're sort of entering a new phase of their franchise, which I'm sure will still be filled with success, but there might be guys there that want a new challenge and want to embrace something in a higher capacity. You're going to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump on that comment that you made, and it's true. It's if you're feeling antsy, as you should as a Mets fan, with the lack of movement, this is the process. This shapes an organization. Hiring the front office, the president of baseball ops, this shapes your organization way more than deciding which free agents to get. So you do not want to force this process. You don't want to rush this hire, these multiple hires that you're going to have. This is not a process that you want to rush. On top of that, you feel like you need to have it in place immediately, but that's not true. You want to basically have this set before the winter meetings, which is where most of the movement on the free agent market happens. And that's, I think this year is December 5th through the 9th. So as long as you have something in place, a couple of weeks, even a few days beforehand to decide this, you'll be fine. Because the Mets are a big market with a brand new owner with deep pockets. All those free agents that see the Mets as a potential fit, they're going to make business decisions to be like, hey, hold on, let's hold off. We see some potential there, at least for a back and forth. So New York is a desirable place. Things are going to happen here in a positive direction. The hiring the front office is the biggest move of the offseason for all of us, for the whole organization. Don't rush it. Take your time. Find the right hires to do it. I think they're doing a great job so far. There's been some issues with their vetting process and history in the past. You hope that the smart people in power right now are learning from their mistakes and taking feedback, which I do think is happening from the connections that I have. I feel like their new process is being better enhanced. And so we are, again, like I said, this is the first step towards something happening. This is the first actual step, the Mets moving forward, because there's got to be something going on behind the scenes to where this is starting to feel itself out. So this is exciting. No need to rush it. There's names out there. There's places to fill it. We have candidates. We're putting it together. This is fun.
Yeah, and like, you mentioned first steps there, and like Steve Cohen is sort of getting like a second first step here, a second chance to make a first impression. He came into this organization with a lot of things already set in place that he chose to maintain. Now it's sort of a completely clean house from where we were in 2019, and it will be Cohen's vision entirely. And, as this goes for any person in any context, the first impression is very important. If you mess up, it's hard to make that irrevocable and, hard to redeem yourself from that. Steve Cohen has already experienced failure, tremendous failure, a very disappointing season in his first go. And with the Atlanta Braves, as I mentioned before, in the World Series, the pressure is on. NL East teams have succeeded in the very recent past. So with this conversation we've had, patience, it's hard. It's very hard to be patient when you want things to happen, when you have such a high payroll and know that things can happen. But I guess all we can do is trust the process and trust that the right decisions will be made with time. And, you mentioned before, like getting things done before the winter meetings. There were signings before the winter meetings last year. Trevor May came very early in the offseason, but that doesn't need to happen. All we need to do is basically get the right people in place for the most important week of the offseason.
If you take this year and last year, the excitement should be just as great, because a lot of what the Mets fans believed was an ownership group that was the biggest blocking point for Mets success is different now. And we feel positive about Steve Cohen being the owner, being the guy in charge. And so we're still in that same process. Like you said, this is the first full off season of pushing forward. And so this is going to be a multi-year building, but we still have the possibilities of imminent success with the talent on this roster. And so it's shaping itself out, but there's a long-term view as well. All exciting things.
Very exciting. I think it's excited caution for me. I think I was too ready to control the NL East for years and years in 2020. And now I've sort of come to the realization that, this division gets clowned a lot. But you know what? Every time that somebody's won the NL East, they've pretty much made a deep run in the playoffs every year. It's a successful
There's so much
division.
talent here. And whether or not, the Braves are a great team. They lost Ronald Acuna, one of the most exciting players in the game. Mike Soroka, their ace before the season started. They lost their left fielder that they signed to domestic violence. They didn't lose him. He ran away. Deservedly so.
Yeah.
All that. Yeah, that's pretty brutal. But look, they're talented. They're young. They have good veterans. They have the Nationals just won the World Series. They just revamped their entire team. The one thing that I need to say is we better be successful before the Nationals are successful. They just cleaned house. They have one of the best players in the game in Juan Soto for many years, but they just cleaned their slate. We're not all the way on reset mode. We're starting here. We need to fill that gap fast.
We're sort of in limbo in between instant competitor and a rebuild, a total rebuild. And
I don't think we need it. We like you said, this spring training, there was so much optimism for me too, because I thought it was a World Series contending roster, completely underperformed. It was a letdown of a season, from injuries and lack of performance. Yes, fact, but the talent was still there. The shape of the team looked good. Let's just start to continue to build on that.
Right, and it's not so much of a rebuild as it is a revamp for the Mets, because what you may consider the core of this team in quotations of Conforto, McNeil, Smith, part of those things will dissolve and go away. J.D. Davis is in there as well. Marcus Stroman may walk, but that doesn't necessarily mean the Mets are going to enter tailspin. It just means that the roster will be constructed very differently, and I think the Mets can learn from their mistakes and really hone in on the players that, they think will fix the team's issues, which is, getting the ball in the air, hitting for power, high slugging numbers, making sure you keep the ball on the ground with your starting pitchers. And we're already starting to see some free agent rumors emerge. I talked to you before the show because John Heyman, who is an ever-present peculiar figure in baseball, came on MLB Network and made some very grand predictions for, sort of the top echelon of free agents in MLB. I did some research, and Heyman's track record with his predictions are very on and off. Some are spot on, some are completely by the wayside. You don't understand why he picked it in the first place, and that applies to these picks as well. The one player that he had confidence.
You said he bet 500 last year.
I wouldn't say 500, but I'm saying the ones that he hit on pretty well.
Yeah, and at the time they might have been a little bit like, what?
Exactly.
So you throw some stuff out there. He's gonna hit a couple of these. So hopefully, it's at least interesting to talk about. It's not complete nonsense.
Yeah, it's speculation, and cautious at that. The one player that he had attributed to the Mets was Chris Bryant coming over in free agency. He actually had Javi Baez going back to the Cubs. Carlos Correa is going to be a Tiger with AJ Hinch. But I thought it was interesting because me and you did our wish list lineups, and we both had different options at third base. And there's also, the Jose Ramirez possibility at third base with him not wanting to sign an extension in Cleveland. But the Mets landing Chris Bryant is pretty interesting, and I think it sort of contributes into the roster construction that I was mentioning before. What do the Mets want to look for? Well, Chris Bryant is a guy, obviously we all know how good of a player he is, but he has one thing that I think is very important, and that's positional versatility. An ability to move him around to positions that he actually can play. We've put a lot of different guys in left field that can't play left field, and a lot of different guys at third that don't usually play third. And Chris Bryant can do those two positions and more, right field, first base. He has experience around the horn. So, you think of him as the high OPS guy that hits for power. He's your 3-hitter, all that. But I think the much more valuable asset that I think the Mets should be looking for in guys like Bryant and other guys on the market like Chris Taylor, who we should definitely talk about because he had a crazy postseason, is that positional versatility, the ability to be the flex option off the bench and in the starting lineup.
Yeah. You're very recency biased for Chris Taylor.
Oh, for sure. He's going to get a bat player. Now. He's going to.
To me, like, again, I don't want to diss on Chris Taylor. He's great. I don't know how he was against me in his career. Probably good. He played for the Dodgers, so it's not great for me. But I'm not trying to discount what he did, but I think his value, his stock might be a little inflated right now. I think he did a lot of damage in a lineup where he was surrounded by, he was going to get attacked because of the people around him in a lineup. I think his approach, knowing that, helped. But again, he's a good player, great player. Any team would be better having versatility. Chris Bryant is very interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
If you go for Chris Bryant, then you got to do some things on your roster. You got to move some other parts away. JD Davis can't play anywhere but there. If that, yeah. And so, DH, you're going to have to move some pieces. I like Chris Bryant. I think he's an excellent player. His versatility is amazing. If he just is a third baseman, he plays a Gold Glove caliber third base. He's not far removed from an MVP here. I think he would be an amazing addition to our team. That would be, I hope Heyman's right in this instance, because that is a big get. But you talked about Jose Ramirez, and that got me excited.
Oh, yeah.
Jose Ramirez, I don't think he's going to sign with Cleveland because he's seen how they treat their stars. I think he saw what happened to Nolan Arenado in Colorado. He's like, I'm not going to do that to myself. I'd rather leave. So that would be an amazing fit. That guy can play some baseball. We don't get to see it much being in the NL. But being an Ohio person, and a lot of my friends and family are Cleveland Indians fans, Guardians fans. It's super exciting. That guy is a great baseball player.
It would be very comical if we poached both of those cornerstone stars from the same team.
So those are some exciting moves. I'll follow this. Heyman, where does Corey Seager to the Yankees?
Yeah, this was on MLB Network. So maybe it was all show, like, to get people excited.
I like Heyman. He gets a lot of
he stirs the pot.
Slack. Yeah, he stirs the pot. He speaks his mind. I like him. He's been good to me in my career. He's got some connections, so he might know a lot more than we do. So
you spoke a little bit on my recency bias for Chris Taylor, and you know what? I looked into the stats, and you're definitely right. Chris Taylor batted .228 and 121 in August and September, and then just lit it up in the postseason. But there is a value to being a good postseason hitter.
Very much so. If you want to win a World Series, you need guys that know how to perform in the postseason. Like it's a different animal. It's different.
And we're talking about Heyman's predictions here, and the list of guys is only like 8 guys long, but they're all premier, and they all could find a spot on the Mets. Your Marcus Semien is on this list, Corey Seager, Nick Castellanos. All of these guys are fit. Some of the guys we mentioned in the last episode as well. And, it just goes back to let's get the right people in place before the winter meetings. Then let's think about this. As fun as it is to speculate.
I want to address one thing that I've seen going on Twitter a lot with Mets fans and stuff. I think it's probably just a joke, but I want to address it. Freddie Freeman will not wear
never
any other uniform.
It was a joke when I said it. It was
besides an Atlanta Braves uniform.
It's never going to happen.
It's not going to happen. Alex Anthopoulos, the Braves fans would revolt. He just took him to the World Series. Like, he is going to remain a Brave. He'll probably retire an Atlanta Brave. I've seen so many like little Twitter pictures of him in a Mets uniform.
I'm guilty, man. I'm guilty.
I know you are. It would be awesome, but I don't think he would I don't think he would go to New York to play for us anyway, because if he's going to do something different, he's going to get away, go to the AL probably. He doesn't want to come back to Atlanta in a different uniform and get the standing O. He doesn't want that.
Even if they didn't go on this magical run, even if they fizzled out and didn't make the playoffs, I don't think he leaves. Like, he's just...
If he leaves Atlanta, if they don't sign him to a deal, I don't want to say anything dumb like run around the house naked, but I would be as shocked to see him in another uniform as I would be to see
like Bryce Harper going to the Phillies, because that shocked me.
Not me.
Okay.
Having played with Harp, he wants, whatever. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I just would be. I don't want to say anything silly, but I'll think of something, a wager.
I like
it would be ridiculous. I would put a lot of money on that bet if I were a betting man. The only betting I do is fantasy football and some March Madness brackets. Outside of that,
I had you beat last week, Jerry. Just want to say,
I am managing our Jomboy Media fantasy football league because I had to auto draft.
I did too. Just saying.
You did?
Just saying.
Oh, then you can't take the success of your team the way you're.
I did some waiver wire.
You didn't do anything.
I got Myles Gaskin. I made a trade. I made some good moves.
Myles Gaskin was not in your starting lineup.
You think I'm 6-0 by accident? Do you think I'm 6-0 by accident?
It is. If you auto drafted, you cannot take credit for your team.
So you wouldn't be bragging if you beat me. You wouldn't be bragging.
No. Well, really? I would brag, but I would also not. I would brag just to get under your skin. But you can't claim you didn't do anything. Your team is your team, and now maybe you make the right moves. You got 3% of your success.
I'll take it.
I did face somebody in our league that I don't know who it was that didn't even move their lineup.
There are a couple like 0-6 teams that I think have just checked out.
Well, I'll tell you. Hold on. This is a side note here. I'm going to pull it up and I'll tell you who I went against, and what their lineup was. I won't name names, but I'll pull up their lineup.
It's a little exposing.
Yeah. So it is Trevor Lawrence was their quarterback, who's on bye.
Okay.
McCaffrey injured. David Montgomery injured. Cortland Sutton, Marvin Jones on bye. George Kittle injured for like weeks.
Yep.
Hawkinson, San Francisco's D, Younghoe Koo. He started like 5 people that aren't even available to make points. So
very nice. That's a hard-earned win right there by you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can take credit for this win just as much as you can for your team's success.
I disagree. I drafted well in my other league, though. I will say.
What's that?
I drafted well in my other league. I got Cooper Kupp with like the 8th pick or something, 8th round. So
that's wonderful.
There you go.
I'm proud of you for that one. I've been trying to trade for Cooper Kupp. I don't want to get sidetracked. Let's stay Mets.
So one more piece of Mets news, and then we have something very exciting for the second half of the show. I won't reveal it yet. But big injury news from the Mets starting pitcher front from one of the guys that will be coming back next year. For those who don't know, the Mets are going to be looking at a very different rotation next year. The only locks right now are Jacob deGrom, Taijuan Walker, and a third man in Carlos Carrasco, who came over from Cleveland. The Mets announced that Carlos Carrasco underwent successful surgery earlier in the week to remove a bone fragment from his right elbow that he was pitching with. So Carlos Carrasco, another one of these guys that was dealing with an injury all season pretty much from the get-go, like Adam Smith. He missed a large portion of the 2021 season, posted a 6.04 ERA. It was not a good year for Carlos Carrasco, but I found this very encouraging because this is not the cookie that I had seen in years past that I had really fell in love with on the Cleveland Indians. So I'm not glad that he was injured, but I'm glad to know that this wasn't his best put forth effort because something was holding him back in his elbow. So I'm really hoping that he can return strong next year.
Yeah, 2 things. One, I would expect Carlos Carrasco to return to form going into next year. The second thing is this is a very common surgery. I think Steven Matz went through it. I think this is the same surgery that Seth Lugo had right before spring training. His season wasn't as great as, expectation, but he had a good season. A lot of that was because he was forced into things that he wasn't ready for and without having a spring training. And same could be said for Carlos, but this is a fairly routine. You get bone chips, you get bone fragments, little floating bodies, and you have to remove them. Otherwise they can, create mobility impairment, just lots of pain. And it shows you Carrasco's probably, to be a very dad joke here, but he's one tough cookie.
Yeah, he is. Oh, that was pretty good. That was nice. It's a double meaning.
It's a full-on dad joke.
Yeah, I'm glad you prefaced it with like a warning. You were like, by the way, this is going to be bad.
You're about to get it. I'm proud of it. I think it's a good joke, but it's definitely a dad joke format. It's not a pun.
It's not a pun.
It's a pun. It's a pun. Is it? It's a pun.
I don't know if it technically counts. It's a dad joke either way. Dad joke sort of has that umbrella to it.
But yeah, I'm proud of it.
Best of wishes to Cookie.
Yes.
All right, so we have him back on the slate for the 2021 season and many other guys. And I prefaced this before by saying we had something fun. If you follow us on our socials, Shea Station on Twitter and Instagram and anywhere else you browse, we posted a Q&A this past weekend. Now, we tried doing a Q&A in the past, and then the Mets had like their most memorable win of the season against the Marlins, like a 5-run comeback in the 9th. So we couldn't do most of the questions that we asked you guys to put forth. But now we're in the offseason. Nothing's getting in the way. And we got a ton of good ones, some from in-company guys, some from our fans. So we really appreciate that. Jerry, I'm gonna put the spot on you a little bit here. I'm gonna put the pressure on you. Do you want to pick our first question? Because I know what mine's gonna be, but it's a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll go first.
Okay.
Because this is a good one. It comes from our Talking Baseball guys on Instagram. Talking Baseball. So if you could have one Mets player from any era on the pod as a guest, who would it be? I have my choice. I want to know who yours is first.
Okay, so there are easy picks to this. There are very, like, you can get one of the GKR guys. I know Gary doesn't count as a Mets player, but Keith and Ron, David Wright is in that category as well. I think Jose Reyes would be a fun guest, just very eccentric. The one I think I'm going to go to for the current state of where things are at right now is I really want to pick the brain of Carlos Beltran, because I think that he's just sort of disappeared from the light ever since 2019, and he has one of the most fabled careers in Mets history with how it ended and how it went. So I really do think an hour sitting down with Carlos Beltran would make for some of the most interesting podcast Mets baseball out there.
That's a good one. I didn't even think about Carlos Beltran. That's really? A good one. Okay. I'm proud of you for that one. Yeah, no, it didn't even cross my mind. I have to admit.
You picked a pitcher, didn't you? Come on.
Of course. Yeah. Because that's I think for me, that's my wheelhouse on being able to chat him up. It's not possible. Unfortunately, he passed. Tom Seaver is the guy.
Yeah.
He's Mr. Met. You know what I mean? He is the guy, the face of a franchise. He's the franchise. I'd love to speak with him. I'd love to talk to him about pitching, about what it meant for him to play for the New York Mets, to live in the city, because we have, I'm from Ohio, to play for an organization like this, to live in the city of New York it's beyond a dream come true, because it's something that I didn't even dream about, because it's, one of the crazy things that happened. So it'd be interesting, especially later in his life, to where he started to reflect on things, to have gotten him in to talk a little bit of baseball. So Tommy Seaver would have been my pick. The second one is Stevie Cohen. I would love to sit down and talk to him.
Does that count? That doesn't count as Mets player, but I'm going to take it in.
I know. Well, that's true. That was very specific player. Okay.
Sorry, Ben. So you don't get to talk to Steve Cohen.
Dang it.
I blocked
All right. Sorry, talking baseball. So I stick with Tom Seaver there.
This one's from another in-company guy. It's from my buddy Rob Sirocco, who edits over for Chris Rose Rotation. From Twitter, Jerry, what conditioner do you use? The people want to know. How do the locks look so good? What's the secret?
Man.
What does he use?
So a conditioner, by the way.
Does the wife buy the products? Is it all
What's
you?
That?
Does the wife buy the products, or is it all you?
She does buy the products.
Okay, that's what I figured.
I have input. My wife was a hairstylist when we met in Nashville. She was kicking butt there. So she has, she still has her license, so we can get it at cost for her. So, but Rob is 100% correct. Conditioner is the key. You have to do it. It's a leave-in long. It's a process. But Olaplex. Have you ever heard of
No,
Olaplex?
I think that's above my pay grade.
So, so that I can hook you up. So they have a shampoo and conditioner, but there's a leave-in conditioner that I put in as I'm drying my hair that takes this nest that would be just this huge head of curls, and it kind of relaxes them and keeps them weighed down while they dry. Olaplex, my man.
Okay, we need an Olaplex sponsorship, like stat. All right, my hair is covered by a hat today, but we're still the best hair.
You have good locks, though.
Hey,
we could take them both off.
We're two sides of the spectrum with our hair, but I like it. It's good. It's a good tandem. All right, what do you got?
Let's do a group one here. Let's go to @ILikeJames2 on Twitter. For both Jolly and Jerry, what are some moves you wanted the Mets to make in years past that didn't happen, both good and bad welcome? So I'll let you go first.
All right. Do you want to do just last offseason, or do you want to go back?
Just kind of things that popped up in your head.
Okay.
So
I have a good and bad from just last offseason, so I'm going to go with those. If you follow me on Twitter, you know what my bad one is. I was borderline depressed when the Mets didn't get Brad Hand. Because the Nationals stole him on that 3-year, 15 deal. And I was like, why didn't we do that? Why did he go to a rival? All that. And then Brad Hand had the season that he had and ended up with us anyway. So, I bit the dust there a little bit. The one guy that I really wanted the Mets to get and who you want them to get this time around is Marcus Semien. I think Marcus Semien was an absolute steal for the Blue Jays. I don't think he ever sees that type of low deal ever again. And it seemed like he was just sitting there waiting to be poached by a competitive team. And the Blue Jays, we had very similar off seasons to them last year. We were in competition for the same guys. We traded with them. And I feel like this was another guy we could have competed over, but in the end, we decided, we assumed Jeff McNeil was going to be Jeff McNeil and that we wouldn't need that option at second base. So Marcus Semien was sort of a missed opportunity there, in my opinion.
I agree with that one. I wanted Marcus Semien so bad. Again, personal connection. I've seen the guy work firsthand. Fantastic human being. Got another chance.
He does.
We got another chance.
You'll have to pay more, but it's worth it.
Yeah. So there's one I wanted very badly for the Mets to lock up Michael Conforto long-term for the last 4 years.
So you wanted the extension to happen earlier.
I wanted the extension to happen. I think a lot of things would have played out differently. I wanted to do what the Braves did with Acuna, what they did with Ozzie Albies. Even with Freddie Freeman, you have a guy that looks like they did it with David Wright. It didn't turn out great in the end because of his health, but I think it was a success for everyone involved. I think Conforto had a chance to he's still, they can sign back. I don't see it happening. I haven't talked to Michael, nor will I ask him about anything unless he brings it up to me, because, free agency is kind of a crazy process. Plus he's getting married this off season. He's got a lot going on. But I would have loved to have had him locked up. I think this year would have been different because there would have been a lot less pressure. It would have been just a smoother ride. It would have been less money because he was still kind of young and established. I thought that was a big miss, simply because you could have got him long-term, like so many teams have done in the past with their players. You sign a young guy to a team-friendly extension. He's happy, you're happy, and he ends up being a face of the franchise. And instead, we're going to see him wear another uniform and have success because he's a great player. And it's going to be bittersweet for us because you think about what Mets fans could have had versus, even him. He loves the Mets. He wanted to be a Met long-term. If he had his way, he would have worn one uniform his whole career too. Still might happen again, but that was one that we missed. As far as extensions, it was an off-season thing.
Yeah, and you bring that up kind of reminds me of where we're at with Brandon Nimmo, because we're sort of in that window right now where you can give Nimmo that extension at a low AAV and sort of lock him up because he loves to play here. So it's sort of like Conforto Part 2 in that way, because Nimmo's going to be great if he stays healthy. Again,
I love Nimmo, and I love what he brings to the table, but I don't think Nimmo's on the same level as a Michael Conforto. Simply just, I love him, and I love what he does. I think what he brings to a team is just as important, but I don't think he is on the same level as Michael Conforto. Just simple. Sorry if that hurts your feelings, buddy.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, I just don't think he's that caliber of player.
Because Conforto can change a lineup at his best.
I think Conforto is an MVP level candidate, and I think he's only going to get better for the next 4, 5, 6 years as long as he maintains health and his he's signed to a comfortable deal where he can settle in and just be a great baseball player.
It could be Zach Wheeler in offense form, which is scary.
There's one more. That was what I was going to talk about when Zach Wheeler went to the Phillies.
That one hurt.
Not only did I know that Zach Wheeler was going to be have amazing run. I think everybody knew it. I had so many phone calls from my former teammates and friends and front office people that have moved to other organizations, kicking tires. I'm like, what's Zach Wheeler like? Because there was so much potential. How does he look? What do you think of him? Is he a worker? I had dozens of phone calls from teams going like, what's he like as a person? And you see the success that he's had. He might win a Cy Young. The guy is who he is. And I don't know. I haven't been able to think about free agency signs from outside. That's which I'll do moving forward. But the guys that they let go are the ones that hit me the most.
So, I mean, that's something to think about with your Brandon Nimmos and your Pete Alonsos. Like, maybe you get that deal done earlier so you don't have to face that
Alonso's a good thing to look at.
I think he's 2025.
He's a power hitter. He's young. He's a Met. If you don't treat him right, the way they kind of delayed his coming to the big leagues, he had a chip on his shoulder. The closer you get to him walking, the more it's going to cost you, the more he's going to feel slighted possibly. So there's a lot of moving parts. Again, that's one of them.
So that's a great question from James. Kind of took us down memory lane there.
Yeah, sorry. And
it's all good.
I like James too.
Oh, nice. That was good. Clever. I mean, it's clever for us because we can see his username. Probably really confusing for everybody else.
Yeah, okay. That's a good point.
Here's a good one from Instagram from @randommlbstars. And this one's good for you because you played under him. Favorite Terry Collins memory?
Oh, man.
So many to pick from.
There's so many. There's like little moments. Terry Collins is the fastest human being. He is the first off the bus onto the plane before like I even stand up and put my jacket on. He is from the bus to the hotel in the elevator before we even like get our luggage out. Like he's an amazingly speedy human. But my favorite is probably a lot of people's favorite is the ass in the jackpot.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
That is him in a nutshell. That is, he is going to fight for his guys. He is going to be passionate about the game of baseball. And he's going to have your back. And I love that moment because it shows you, and it's a little sneak peek into behind the scenes because you don't normally get that audio, but you see him getting fiery, arguing for his team, for the overall, arc of things. And it just shows you that he's a gem of a human.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you took mine there. The only other one I had was the press conference after the Wilmer Flores initial trade didn't go through and how just confused he was and like, who did he get traded for who, for what? And like, I just thought that was really good because you could tell how 1,000% honest he was in that moment. None of that was show. So yeah, the Mets haven't had a manager like Terry Collins in a long time and probably won't again for a while. Cause
there's few of those guys in the game still. They're becoming less and less just simply because, you're moving to a different era of the game. And the game is lesser without guys like that, I believe.
It's a good question there from Random.
My turn. I want to have a little fun.
Go ahead.
@Matthias AK on Twitter. What is the best fast food joint in the U.S.? I'm going to let you go. I want to start it by saying, do you want to define fast food?
Yeah, I think it's important that we sort of discuss what qualifies. Now,
are you talking drive-through that you're able to go fast food, or are we including things like Five Guys and Shake Shack?
So yeah, I'm thinking we can include like your Five Guys, your Shake Shack, maybe your
Chipotle
Popeyes. See, Chipotle is the line. Chipotle is
to
the
me,
line.
Chipotle is the same as Shake Shack.
Really?
What's the difference?
Okay, so I think we can either count both or count neither.
I count both.
Okay.
I'm not picking Chipotle. I'll let that count out of the bag. But I'm
not picking Chipotle either. Chipotle is up there for me, but they've had some.
Got it. Give me a couple of names and then give me your winner.
So one for me is definitely Popeyes, just because of the chicken sandwich. Love it.
Number one.
No, not number one. One of them. One of my tops. Yeah. Tough call there. But I think my number one is what you mentioned before, Five Guys. I think that's just, when I want to be a piece of crap for the night and like I want to get something good and greasy. Because no place packs the fries more than Five Guys. And really
shout out if you've ever had it, their Cajun fries are phenomenal.
Yes, absolutely.
And if you throw those in your car in that bag, your car's going to smell like their Cajun fries for days.
So good. And like, the smell's not for everybody, but it is for me.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Okay,
so what's your winner?
I think Five Guys. I'm going to stick with that.
Okay, I love it. So I'm going to go a little bit different. I want to shout out one thing because it's the single best item on any fast food restaurant, and that is Whataburger, and it's their honey butter chicken biscuit. Whoa. It is a late night morning snack, like a breakfast menu. It is glorious. It's a biscuit with a little like chicken cutlet, fried chicken with this honey butter on top that is wonderful. By the way, it's so good that the Corpus Christi Hooks, which is where the Whataburger headquarters is in Corpus Christi, I believe. I know it's a Texas thing. Is that the
Houston affiliate or no?
Texas. We'll just put it that way.
Sure.
I don't know. Anyway, my former teammate Cliff Pennington, his dad is an exec.
Cliff.
So I know it's a Texas thing. But the Corpus Christi Hooks, I think every home Friday, they were the Corpus Christi honey butter chicken biscuits, and they wore the orange and white. If you could do this and put up a clip and show those uniforms, it's the item is so good that they named the minor league baseball team after them once a week. It's lovely.
My God, I found it. These uniforms are incredible. Like the orange you're talking about? Yeah. Oh glorious. My God. Yeah, we're gonna clip this. This is too good.
Yes, it's fantastic. So that's the best part about minor league baseball too. I love it. So that is, I wanted to shout out them. I want to say shout out to Chick-fil-A because Chick-fil-A is wonderful, except for, some of the politics aside, and the fact that you're not open on Sundays, you're eliminated.
Yeah, I know. Come on. You gotta be accessible every day of the week.
But I don't know how many times that we've had getaway games, like getaway days on a Sunday, where we get on the plane and we're like, oh, nice, we get some Chick-fil-A. No, can't.
No, not today.
So you're out.
They also made the Mets foul poles look really weird for like 3 seasons, which I didn't love. So I blame them for that.
My number 2 is Five Guys, my second favorite, for all the reasons that you named. And then number 1 for me, a New York City staple, Shake Shack.
Okay. So
you're a
Met at heart then.
I agree. I am not a burger person. I would rather have a hot dog, but Shake Shack's burgers are phenomenal. They're milkshakes. Like it's wonderful. They need to adjust their fries, I think, to kind of elevate.
Yeah. But you could, the thing is, like, what I do, like, the last game I went to was the great Francisco Lindor 3 home run game,
Love it.
Shout out to the guys that brought us Shake Shack burgers, because that was awesome. But what I did was I got the Shake Shack burger, but then I bought Nathan's fries separate.
Okay,
so I get the best of both worlds, and I put them together.
Yeah, but Shake Shack has the ability to make a tweak to their fries so you can come by. But Shake Shack is my favorite. I don't often crave burgers, and I crave Shake Shack quite a bit. I'm like, man, I could really use a Shake Shack.
Shake Shack burgers smack. And I'm a burger crave guy, but if I'm in a ballpark, I'll have a hot dog. That's usually how I go.
Yeah. But there also Shake Shack, you can tweak things to where they're new and you can try things and go back to your old faithful, but also they have enough variety to where you can mix things up.
I'm just getting hungry now. We need to stop this.
I am too. I'm so hungry.
Okay, so let's do one more each.
One more each?
Sound
okay.
Good? So sorry if your question does not make the cut. We have a lot here. But I'm going to pick one now for us. Let's see. I'll try and keep it somewhat baseball related since we just talked about food for like 10 minutes. This one actually I found really interesting from my buddy Brad on Twitter, Celebradtion. That's a little
great name. Great there. Twitter name.
This one is for you, Jerry. And I thought it was interesting. Jerry, who would normally give you an off-season plan of how often you should pitch, rest, and train, etc.? Would it be yourself, an agent, the team, or somebody else entirely?
So this is, when you're young and coming up through the minor leagues, organization 100%. They're going to send you your workout regime, when to change it, because there's phases. They're going to send you a throwing program down to the throws, number of throws at each distance, that kind of thing. Maybe even a meal plan. If you're a heavy guy or a light guy, they're going to try to help you maintain your weight. When you get to the big leagues, they still send you those things. They also send you your protein powders, all your vitamins, all your supplements. That's part of our CBA. They have to provide their players with proper nutrition in the off seasons. But for me, as I got older in the game, I learned what worked for me, and I found a specific group of, baseball specific training staff that was able to help me do what I wanted to do for my individual. Like Dustin Clark, who's with the Mets, is great at figuring out things, but I needed a little bit more personal attention. And so I went to a group out of St. Louis who helped me define my body. Like on a weekly basis, I could send them video of like me walking, and they'd be like, all right, this is your warm up. You're doing this a little bit. Go see a chiropractor. It was a lot more specific. And then as far as throwing program, it was 100%. I knew what I needed to do. I throw way more in the off season than anybody would ever recommend. I knew I needed it. It was a learned process. And so, it's basically you and what you want to do once you get to the big leagues. You figure it out on your own.
Yeah, because it's like we always talk about player development, how it's like sort of this umbrella term, and like no one really knows the intricacies of it. And like that is a big part, like knowing your own body and finding people that can understand what you mean by those kinds of things. So I thought that was really
I found out that I needed to throw way earlier and way more often than they tell people to, because every spring training I would lag behind, and it got progressive. And I was like, all right, I just learned, I know I need to throw. So that was a good one. I'm ready for my last one.
Yeah, you go for it, man. Pull the trigger.
So my last one is a pretty good one. So it's from L.Oliver72 on Instagram. And it's, will DeGrom's 48 be retired?
Good.
I'll let you answer it first.
Okay. So let's do as it stands right now, and if he pitches like, I don't know, 10 more years or whatever. But I still think, as it stands right now, DeGrom has a legitimate chance to be retired if he retired tomorrow. Just because he qualifies for all these like ERA and WHIP candidacies and whatever, and he ranks extremely highly, like right alongside your Kuzman and your Seaver and basically all those things. I think if DeGrom pitches the rest of the season and gets those extra 15 starts this season, he cements himself as maybe the best pitcher outside of Tom Seaver in Mets history. So I, for one, 100,000% DeGrom thinks DeGrom gets his 48 retired. And I think he's another one of these guys that wants to be a Met for as long as possible, and the Mets are willing to pay a guy like DeGrom. So I have fair confidence that you will see 48 at some point in Met Stadium, in Citi Field.
I think 100% if he didn't throw another baseball for the rest of his life, if he had, unfortunately, something happened to where he couldn't play baseball anymore, I think his number gets retired anyway. He was Rookie of the Year, carried a team to a championship, has so many signature moments as a Met, won 2 Cy Youngs, and Jake, we trust.
Absolutely.
He won 2 Cy Youngs, would have won another one if it wasn't a shortened 2020 season. And, you can't discount health and issues in the 2021 season, but I think he was clearly the best pitcher in the best pitcher era of baseball. He is head and shoulders above every single other pitcher on the planet, and he's done it in one uniform. I think there is no question that his number will be retired at Citi Field.
And that's one factor I didn't even bring in, the competition, because pitchers are undoubtedly better than they used to be, just in every facet of the game. And DeGrom is
such a throwback. You see how the Dodgers were treating Max Scherzer this year. Again, he's dealing with some arm fatigue. He's dealing with some arm fatigue. And by the way, I might change my name from only Tom Seaver to our interview to Jacob DeGrom.
Yeah,
because I really love. I don't think.
Do you think we could get him to talk though? He's very.
That's the thing.
Soft-spoken.
I could if I could get him to open up. He is so funny, man.
Oh, I think my camera just died.
I saw that.
That's probably our cue.
That's a good cue to end. You lost your video feed, but if I could help show fans the side of Jacob DeGrom, the guy is hilarious. He's witty. He's funny. He's charming. If they could see that a little bit, I think it would open it up in even more. But I respect his want and need to be a private person. There's nothing that he needs to do outside of just pitch that he doesn't have to show anything else for me.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Well, my camera's dead, which means you can't see my DeGrom cutout anymore. So I think that'll probably be where we cut it out. If you guys submitted a question and we didn't read it, I'm very sorry, but we might do this thing again because I had a lot of fun with it.
We'll get back to it. Keep sending us questions. I love this kind of interaction. This is fun.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, reach out to us, ask us anything about fast food restaurants or baseball if you feel like talking about that as well. But we really appreciate you guys hanging out with us for the last hour. Hopefully we have more news to bring you soon. And sometime next week, be on the lookout for a new Shea Station episode with a very special first time ever guest joining us. Not going to reveal who, but you might know who if you follow us. So there you go. But for this episode, the 17th of Shea Station, I'm the Jolly Olive for Jomboy Media.
I am Jerry Blevins, clearly the face of Shea Station.
Absolutely, because I don't have a face currently.
The face of the franchise.
And we will see you guys next time.
See you guys.
Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.